Hello and welcome to Journey Intelligence Weekly, your briefing on the latest news and trends in the world of AI. I'm Jordan Roberts, here with Mark Pizzuli, and we're both with Journey Alliance, the proud sponsors of this series. So thank you everyone for joining us. Before we get started, we would like this to be interactive. So if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the chat and we can incorporate that as we go along. And if at any point, as we're talking about this, you're curious about applying AI in your own role at work, we have an AI training program, and you can scan the QR code up there in the corner or click on the link, which I've dropped in the comments, and it'll take you to our webpage where you can learn more about that. So we're going to be talking first about ChatGPT 5. That's the big news story this week. I'm going to let Mark kick us off, though. So Mark, really start with that timeline of how ChatGPT's release went.
Yeah, so I think it's a little amusing actually. So ChatGPT 5 officially launched about a week ago. There was rumors leading up for a couple weeks that there was some unnamed models floating around. And so last Thursday, they launched ChatGPT 5. They announced it, and then they launched it immediately. People started getting it almost immediately. It did roll out. It was a staged rollout, but within a few hours, almost everyone had it. But you went from having, 4.0, 03, 04 mini, 04 mini high, and sorry, those were 4.0 mini high. You get the idea though. So you went from having all these other models, 4.5, 4.1, that had all these different nuances to their capabilities, and suddenly you had two options. You just had ChatGPT 5 and ChatGPT 5 Thinking. There was also a ChatGPT 5 Pro. It was only available to Pro users at launch up until just a couple of days ago. So really, you had two options, and people were not happy. I would say that was the general consensus, primarily because they had workflows, they had processes they were using them for, and things didn't work the way that they expected at the middle of a work day, right? So. Press coverage that day was not that big of a deal. OpenAI did announce that the router, right? So ChatGPT 5 has a prompt router in it. It decides how much thinking your prompt really requires, and then it makes a decision based on that, and then it assigns it to the appropriate model behind the scenes. So the reality is ChatGPT 5 is actually like 6 or 7 models behind the scenes, and it's picking the one that you likely need based on what your prompt is. The problem is the router wasn't working the way they expected it to, and so people were asking complex questions and getting stupid answers. And so the feedback pretty quickly was pretty negative. A lot of people were like, "This is not an improvement," after they got touted as a huge improvement. And then on top of that, GPT-5 is a little bit more business. A little bit more dry, doesn't have quite the personality. I'm not even sure it has a personality. They say it comes with 4 different personalities. You can pick one. They're all quite a bit drier than what we are all accustomed to. So that became another. So basically, OpenAI spent a couple days kind of fighting fires on a variety of fronts. And people thought the model was worse than what they had before. And then they ended up having to reverse their policy on model removals and give 4.0 back to everyone. And since then, they've given everything back to everyone because that's just where it's landed. Is that people are they needed all the other models as well. So I think they were hoping to simplify their offering, and instead they've ended up with 2. Now they have 2 more models that are live. I would imagine they will start phasing out old models as they get GPT-5 running well. So. We also found out there's a real thing out there called AI attachment. There was a lot of people that were like, talking about like business attachment. We're talking about like emotional. I'm not talking about the crazy. There's some crazy stuff going on too. That's not what I'm talking about. Just in a general sense that people started to express kind of an emotional attachment to the model of their choice.
Mm-hmm.
It talked to them a certain way, and it had a certain amount of warmth. They were accustomed to it. It was like knowing someone, and then it was gone. I don't think we've ever seen that with technology before. So that is an interesting thing that happened. Seems to be very real and something to be very aware of. If you, if any of you out there happen to have 700 million active monthly users, you need to be careful. So they've had a rough week messaging and all that. They've added all the models back. They're working on the router, and things I would say have generally gotten better. But we're going to share some of our takes, and we use a lot of ChatGPT, and so we've got some feedback on what we're seeing and what we're hearing. So on that, kind of what have you been hearing, Jordan? Like what are you seeing in your own experience?
Yeah, I think so I'll use it a lot for like to help with writing, since a lot of what I do is content based. I will say 4.0 was better at that, and it still is. It has not gotten rid of the M dash. It has not gotten rid of anti.
You just hate those M dashes, don't you?
Who doesn't at this point? It's not gotten rid of that. I would never have called ChatGPT a good writer, but it gets you to a point of acceptable that you can build on. So I think ChatGPT 5 is just, they did not succeed there. I'm not sure that was a goal for them though. I do notice I like that it's not as warm. I've always wanted it to be direct. Like if I'm asking it for something, I don't need it to hype me up. I'm not going to a chat for that. Some people are, and that was expressed to the CEO of OpenAI, which he said made him sad, actually. But I'm not using it for that, and I really want it to be direct. So when I'm using it for brainstorming, I'm noticing that it's a lot better in that it's not being like, this is the greatest idea that's ever happened. It challenges me without me necessarily having to prompt it. I kind of include that though still in my prompts to get a better response, but it's like it's not trying to please me as much anymore, and I find that valuable for pretty much everything I'm using it for. But especially for the brainstorming type stuff, which I think is probably my favorite use case, is challenging ideas that I have. So I really like that update. What I don't like, and Mark and I agree on this, is how long a thing takes to give me an answer for anything.
It is quite a bit slower when you use thinking, right? So the reasoning model is quite a bit slower. So, and I wonder if that won't go away when it's not, less than a week old and everyone's using it. And if it, it doesn't, when you have a technology like this and it's operating 110% of normal, like that 10% has to come from somewhere. So,
yeah.
Right. Like, so that 10% is likely experiencing slowdown. So hopefully, it's happened in the past, when O3 Pro came out, I was like, oh, let me run a research paper. And like 2 hours later, it was still working on it. Now it'll do the same task in 12 minutes. So still not fast, but 12 minutes versus 2 hours, two different things. So, hopefully it'll improve.
Yeah. Have you found a use case that you think GPT-5 is better at?
So, I think, so for me personally, it's doing a solid job when you let it finish. Letting it finish has been painful in some cases. I've been in some time-sensitive situations, as many of you may or may not know. So I do teach an business AI use class. And so we generally do the prompts live that we're working on, that we're using as part of the class. And like one of the prompts that I would usually get an answer in 7 to 10 seconds took like 3 minutes to run. So that's painful, right? If people are watching, you start, talking over the top. So while we're waiting, looking for something else to do, just mess up the flow a bit. So I think that has been a challenge. The speed has been a challenge. That being said, it seems to be more accurate. And when I take the time to give it my specific intent, it gives me back what I asked for. some things with formatting of text, right, where I was using templates and I was using kind of stated, this is the output format I'm looking for. For the first time ever, I got it back where I literally just had to copy and paste it into Word. It did exactly, it was exactly what I asked for. So that for me is a big deal, because like that's a prompt template I use a lot, and it saves me from having to clean up the output every time. So it's a big savings. And those are the types of things that you just expect to work with a piece of technology, right? If I tell you to output it in this format, then you want it in that format. You don't, when you bold something in Word, you don't print it and it's not bold, you're not happy, right? Like that's not okay. And so the same thing is eventually needs to be true of ChatGPT. So I will say that it's more exacting on that front. It does appear to be smarter. And I think where I've heard this line drawn, and I think this is exactly what it is the models themselves, right? The core models, and there's a bunch of them and they're all tied together, right? But the core models themselves are better, period, hands down, no question about it. Developers that are using them directly and can pick exactly what model they want are expressing a lot of satisfaction. They're getting what they want. The coding is better, the math is better, the scripting is better, right? They're doing a lot of advanced, the analysis is better. So they're doing a lot of things that are more exact. The output needs to be more exact. There's a true versus a false. It's not creative in any sense. And so they're getting what they're asking for. On the flip side, the things that had more to do with user experience, the UI, the creative, the warmness of the chatting, the ability to pick the right model, which is really a user experience feature they're trying to add in, so that you don't have to go and you don't have, like, from a user standpoint, you're not having to understand what all the different models are good and bad at is a big plus if they can just figure it out for you, but they've got to be able to do it well, right? And so that was a miss. The lack of warmth was a miss. The lack of letting people know their old models were going away was a miss, right? So I mean, there's all that, but those are all user experience things. So the things they missed on are the first things people run into when they go to use, like they go, oh, I got this update, I got this shiny new thing to go play with, and the first thing they notice is all the experience stuff. And so their first impression of the update was really, really bad. I think over time they'll recover from that, but they've definitely damaged a little bit of their credibility on that front.
Yeah, I will say on my end, having read about it leading up to, because we've known that ChatGPT 5 was coming probably end of summer for some time now. The way that OpenAI was talking about it, I really thought it would be capable of more than it is for what I'm using it for every day, and what I think most people are like. I'm not sure that most people in small business are using it to code.
Probably not. Let's hope they're not, because it's really like there's a pretty big downside to vibe coding. So I would hope that unless they're using it in a coding platform, probably not a great choice. At the same time, though, I think it has the fact that it can whip up a script now fairly accurately and write you. I was just talking in a class.
Oh, you mean like a Python script?
Like a Python script or something.
I was going to tell you, I was like, I tried to use it to write a video script, Mark, and it did horribly. I had to write it myself.
You got to go back to 4 or 5 for that, right? Like you really want to go back to something that's more creative for that. No, but I think the fact that it can tackle some of these analysis tasks. So one of the creators I follow handed it 3 different CSV files, all interrelated, that were messed up, and basically asked for this analysis. And in the past, it would have just completed the work, right? Like it wants to give you what you want so bad that it gave you false or misleading answers. And now it found the errors and was like, yeah, I can give you this minus this one row with an error. I'm just like, this row doesn't look like, the data here is not consistent, but for the rest of the data, here's the answer. If you want, do you want me to replace the data in this row with something else? I mean, that's what you're looking for in an assistant that's going to do analysis. You don't want it to assume anything, right? Like you can't just fake the data when the data isn't there. So
yeah.
So from that standpoint, I think it's a huge leap forward. So, and I really do believe over time that's going to show itself. So we'll see. We'll see how long over time is, though.
Yeah, I've seen talk about the changes to ChatGPT, like before with the first model. Then what was the first model called? 3 or just regular?
I think it was just called when it was just ChatGPT. It was, I think, 2 is what they released.
2, and then 3 came out, and that was kind of a big leap in quality. And now we're just getting like incremental improvements.
And I would say not just incremental, like literally we're splitting hairs, right? The improvements are minimal, which I think is a sign of a stabilizing industry. And also everyone talked about AGI coming in 2026.
General intelligence.
Yeah, like full general intelligence, a singularity, if you will. Like there's a lot of different names for it, but it just shows that I think we're a lot farther away than we think we are.
Which is a relief. I like that. I would like us to stay far away from that, actually.
You're okay. You're not looking for your Matrix moment or your Terminator moment?
I would actually love to, if that happens, I would love it to be after I am long gone from this world. So
good to know. Good to know.
Not interested in that. Yeah, so that's the major things that I've noticed with it. I'll be honest, my use case is I'm not doing so many different things with it every day. I've kind of found what works for me. And the change was like, okay, so now it doesn't hype me up. Great. And that was all there really was for ChatGPT for me for 5.
And I agree with you. Like I could do without that. I never really, I'm looking for answers generally, looking for it to run workflows. It's doing that effectively. If we can finish the sluggishness of the responses on the thinking model, then I'll probably be quite pleased. So I've had it run through some of the workflows I'm accustomed to using, and it's it's doing a fantastic job. So if you're just willing to wait for the answer, deep research I think is markedly better. So
yeah, that is true. Deep research
is markedly better. The extra ability to reason. Now, when you're doing deep research, it's a 15-20 minute response to your prompt. So, but it wrote me a 10-page paper, really well formatted, very well cited, exactly the information I was looking for on like one shot the prompt, right? So, I think from that perspective, that's a big improvement. And I think we'll continue to see it. And really, here's the other thing I think that people don't think about as much. If you're OpenAI and you're looking at your 700 million active users, that 500 million of which are probably free, right? Like they're not all paying. Who are you trying to improve ChatGPT for? The 200 million people that are paying you, or the 500 million that aren't, right? There's only two viable answers. They're either looking to improve it for their existing clients, or they're looking to improve it in such a way that people that aren't paying will switch to paying. There are no other answers. They are ultimately a business. So from that perspective, that's what you have to ask someone that's complaining about how it works. Like, well, are you paying for it, or are you on the free version? Because if you're on the free version, they likely don't care if your experience got better or not. They don't want to turn you off, but like that's not their focus. Their focus is getting you to convert into a paying customer. So, so I think you have to factor that in. It's they're not here to provide a free service that has a significant cost to them, right? Like they're spending money like it's going out of style on GPUs. So, so I think that's a big factor here as well. Interestingly, I'm not sure a lot of people like, so there's a site that tracks AIs taking IQ tests.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT 5 scored a 148 on one of the tests, which is, I think, 16 points higher than what O3, I think it was O3 Pro was the highest scoring model before. This is pretty significant, right? Like from an intelligence, like answer questions that have a right answer standpoint, quickly, it it's it can do that, right? It does this amazing job at pattern recognition, both visually as well. The visual model's fantastic. So you could give it those tests where you kind of look at all these patterns and say which is the ninth one that's missing. It can answer those questions. Those questions in the past have been like uniquely something that humans could figure out, and not even all humans. Like literally less than 2% of humans were good at them. So when you think about it from that perspective, it's pretty
Yeah.
amazing where it's headed in that
Mhm.
sense.
Not in that 2%. Just being honest. So while ChatGPT was making these updates, Claude was in the background. They added some personalization features. I think Claude doesn't get a lot of attention, but I've used Claude previously, and it's a pretty good model. You've used it. Calling it a model be accurate. Anyway, it's a really good AI platform. You've used it yourself, Mark, right?
I have. So I've used Claude Opus 4.0 to do some kind of integration development. It is, in my opinion, it was phenomenal. Like it's a really good model. Um, Curious to see kind of as they move into uh, that next phase with their models. I haven't played with 4.1. It should be incrementally better than 4.0. But the changes that Anthropic announced this week, I think, are really nice quality of life changes, right? Like the fact that you can ask Claude now, you can say, "Hey, what were we chatting about yesterday?" And it now has access to all your other previous chats, so it can go and like answer that question for you. Um, that's a pretty interesting kind of that's this continuous like this ability to recall, which
Mm-hmm.
other models don't have, um, or other model makers haven't implemented. So I think um, I think that is like those are the kind of things that make it easier to use a model that people don't realize. And then and as soon as one model maker releases a feature like that and people it's well received, then the nice thing is you see it spread, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, ChatGPT does that. You can ask, like, I'll ask it, I've asked it what you would likely respond to something based on what it knows about our working relationship for transcripts I've shared in our chats, and it'll reference those. Sorry if that's creepy, but I do that anyway.
How did I answer?
I can't.
Did it sound like me?
A little bit. It got it kind of right. But yeah, so Claude is more leaning towards it's like making the assistant yours. It's keeping your workflows consistent. You have the option to turn some things off. It's like you can tune the tone and format. So it's really just making it more customizable, and like you can keep it that way, which I think is pretty valuable. But ChatGPT kind of does some of that as well. It's just not where I think Anthropic announced that. I don't know that I saw ChatGPT announce that they had those things.
But they released this where they said ChatGPT has access to all your other chats and it uses them for context.
Mm-hmm.
But interesting. It's in fairness, I don't know that I've tried that. What were we chatting about yesterday? Like, I don't know that I've actually tried that. Like, I don't know that I've given a chance to answer that question. That example was pointed out in Claude, but that's a good point. Like, I don't know. So
yeah, I will say I do that all the time with ChatGPT, and that's very valuable to me. I don't have to repeat what I've said. I just say, what do you know? For example, what do you know about the Journey Alliance brand? It gives me everything it knows that I've told it. It'll get some things wrong, some wires crossed. I'll correct it, and then I'll give it the context for why I needed that, right? So I'm trying to maybe write a post, and I need it in to match the Journey Alliance brand.
So you're just pulling in, you're pulling from all the context it has into a narrower context within your chat so that you can then say, okay, now take that and do the following with it.
Yeah. And that saves me a lot of time. I'm not having to repeat myself. And I don't think a lot of people realize that they can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can do it on the free version. I will say that. I don't think the free version remembers.
I don't know. I haven't had the free version in a very long time. I will tell you that I do use projects to kind of silo some information that I don't want it to think is mine. So I do a lot of prompts in the training courses where I say that I'm a variety of different jobs, that I do all these different jobs, And before I kept all of that work siloed, ChatGPT started to think I had like 6 jobs. Like it answered once and it was like, oh, well, you do this, 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 this. And I was like, oh, like I gotta make sure to keep all this stuff kind of clean. So
Yeah, I realized that ChatGPT thought I did a lot of jobs as well when I asked it what it thought I looked like, and it made me like 50.
oh,
So we had to have it. I had to course correct.
you don't look a day over 45.
Thanks. So I feel like the projects are a really good way to organize as well, but I forget that it's an option quite often. So there's still a way to build off the context within regular chat that I think is really valuable. Before we close out here, is there any other important news stories that you have on your mark?
I think there is one interesting thing. I was kind of in my heart knew this would be the case. We'll see if it turns out to be true, but there's rumors that the new Siri that Apple's working on that we're supposed to see next year, and it's supposed to be fantastic, by the way, is going to allow you to operate apps on your phone by voice. So you're going to be able to say, right now you can say, Siri, text this person this, right? But you'll be able to say, like, any app that's on your phone, you can ask it to go and take action in that app. So I think while Apple's clearly late here, it might be a situation where they arrive at just the right time with just the right feature set. And the other interesting thing is this is not something that's going to be easy for Google to do because all the Android operating systems aren't the same, right? There are all these different variations based on who the manufacturer of the hardware is, and the manufacturer of the hardware changes the version of Android slightly, and then they also don't allow upgrades. So that is a challenge that Google's had to deal with, specifically the Android side of Google's had to deal with for years. And Apple basically has this amazing upgrade cycle. Like within 48 hours, like 90% of users have upgraded to the new version when it's available. So, I do think that this is one of those capabilities where, I'm not going to say the name of the assistant because I've got it sitting right here, but like, hey, go request an UberX for me, right? And like you don't even have to do anything, right? Like you can interact with your phone in that way. So you can imagine the power that starts to give you. Maybe people stop taking their phones out 20 hours a day and just talking to them through their through their AirPods or whatever when they need something, and they start getting away from kind of staring at the screen all day long. So
I sincerely doubt that, but
fair enough. We can be hopeful though.
One can hope, but it's not gonna screen read TikTok for me. So
okay, this is totally off topic, but did you see in some Norwegian countries, they've started installing lights in the crosswalks because people don't look up to see if they're allowed to walk or not. And so now there's like walk or don't walk symbols in the ground because they're more likely to be alive.
What a time.
What a time to be alive, huh? Yeah, everybody's looking down.
On that note, we'll wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And if you are interested in learning how to use any of these models, particularly ChatGPT, you can check out our AI training either by scanning that QR code or clicking the link that I've dropped here in the comments. Otherwise, thanks again for joining us, and we will be back here next Thursday.
Have a great week, everyone.